Today, Daniel Bernmar, Deputy Mayor in Göteborg.
Yes.
And you're responsible for the implementation of the 6 hours working day trial at Svartedalen nursing home.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe to start with, when did the experiment start at Svartedalen and what was the aim of the experiment?
Well, the experiment started back in February of 2015.
Okay.
And it's a 2-year project, so it ended now in January of 2017. The aim of the project were several, but the main thing with the project was that we wanted to find out the effects of changing from 8-hour-a-day average to 6-hour-a-day average. So that was the main aim. So we employed a researcher to study, evaluate the project, and we found a caring home for elderly to do this project. And normally in Sweden, shortening the workday has been a question of efficiency or productivity. And this project does not have that aim. What we wanted to do was to see how does it affect work environment. We wanted to see how it affected the health of the staff. We wanted to see how we can translate part-time jobs into full-time jobs. So those were the main aims, but we also asked the researcher to look into the economics of shortening the work day, and specifically looking at what are the direct costs and what are the direct financial benefits of doing of shortening the workday.
Okay, we come to the results within a second. But maybe in short, could you explain a bit the views of the Swedish political parties on working time reductions? Because, if I have understood correctly, it's a heavily debated topic in Sweden as it is in Belgium. It's very controversial, let's say. And apparently there were also attempts in Göteborg to end the experiment. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, this is a classical right-left issue, and it's also a question of where the left party, which I represent, has been a strong proponent for a long time, while the other parties on the centre-left has not really seen this as an important issue. So in that perspective, both the trade unions and the sort of centre-left have been more interested in other issues for workers, mostly creating better working conditions and improving salaries. So this has not for a long time been an important issue, even though we as a left party has been strong proponents for a long time. And I think the reasons for that is that we've had in Sweden, as I think in many countries in Europe, a longer discussion on how to get more engagement on the labour market, creating incentives for everyone to work more. And here we go, asking people to work less. So from a right-wing perspective, it's been a very sort of attacking the main line of their policies that has been to create more incentives to work more. So it's been heavily debated in Gothenburg, and from the right it's been attacked several times during these 2 years, trying to actually end the project as quickly as possible. Luckily though, we've been able to, together with the Social Democrats, the Greens, the feminists and a couple of other parties been able to gather enough force to keep it going for these 2 years.
To go into the details, how was the experiment concretely organized?
Concretely, we chose a care home for elderly, where it works about 65 assistant nurses, which are the basic care staff. So this was the sort of blue-collar, for us it was important, it was the blue-collar jobs in the welfare sector, which is a huge employer for women, which is also an important aspect. We wanted this to be a question for women and for women workplaces, which are often organized through the public means, through the welfare sector. And it's a sector, being it elderly care or child care, that has high sick leave numbers, poor working conditions, and low pay. So from that perspective, it was important that it was not specifically aimed at creating higher productivity but just improving working conditions, looking how it affects quality, and see what effects does it have on the health of staff that we know suffer greatly from poor working conditions.
Okay. To get into the results, so the experiment is finished at the moment, and if I have understood correctly, the final results are known. So the final report is there for 1 week or something.
Yes.
Could you explain what are the results? What is the evaluation of the experiment?
When we look at aspects of working conditions, we see a clear improvement. We see a less stressful environment. We see the perceived health of the staff increased, not as much as white-collar women. If we compare to white-collar women, people working in office or anything, we're still not there. So we still have a way to go, but we see a huge increase. On an average, looking at parameters around health and working conditions, we see about 100% increase or improvement of working conditions and health, which is, as far as I know, unheard of from a single policy implementation. So in that sense, it's been a great success. When we look at doing part-time jobs to full-time jobs, we of course see a huge effect, because many of these women, because they're mostly women, over 90% women, has not been working full-time because they have taken care of children, and so they've had work-family balance issues. They've had issues of poor health because of their jobs. So it's been important looking into, okay, if we change what a full-time is, will they work full-time? And we've seen an increase in that as well. So that's also a success. When we look at the costs of the project, we also see that it's not as costly as we first expected. The project is about 12 million crowns for 2 years.
Okay.
Half of that cost is negated by other benefits. So what we've done, we've basically created 40 new jobs because we want the same number of working hours. So we needed 14 more people employed in the care home. And when we employed those, we also created 14 jobs that wasn't there before. And it's 14 jobs where you had unemployment benefits, where you had social security costs. So when you negate the cost for the project with the costs decreased in the social security system, it halves the cost.
Okay.
So it's still, of course, a fairly expensive measure, but now it's not that expensive, and if we could sort of rewire the social security system so that at least the public employers got those benefits, then looking at the question again, we would also ask ourselves, if we do this policy implementation, what effects do we get? Because increasing costs 25%, that's a high cost, but increasing costs 12%, it's not as high, and it's something that you actually can discuss. And you can discuss it from the perspective that, do we see quality improvements? Do we see work environmental improvements? Then it's actually possible to do something.
Do you know of other examples of 6 hours working days in Sweden or 30 hours working week? It depends a bit on how it's organized.
Well, that's one of the reasons I find this sort of baffling, that this has been such a huge issue. Because when we look at the labour market in Sweden, we see numerous examples of not necessarily something that's called a 6-hour work day or something that's called a 30-hour week. We see other measures which are called all kinds of things, but in the end actually creates what is to be a 32-hour week for many, or sort of a 7-hour day, 7-hour a day average. We also see specific other examples, such as in our case the region here, which has the healthcare. There is a orthopedic clinic, which has a 6-hour day for
University clinic.
University clinic.
Okay.
We also see a car repair shop in the neighboring municipality. They have a 6-hour day.
Toyota plant.
Toyota plant, yes. But both those examples are also typical of the other version of a 6-hour workday, where they tackle work environmental issues, but they also, in some ways, increase productivity, because they use their operating theaters 12 hours a day instead of 8. They use their in the repair factory. It's the same. They use their shop more hours a day. Also provide a better service for their customers. So they see clear both quality and productivity benefits.
Am I correct to say that it all started in Kiruna in the end of the 80s?
Yeah, I think the Kiruna was the first example where it was sort of clearly defined as shortening, from a public employer's perspective, shortening the work day. And that Kiruna example was all about creating jobs. Because back in the 90s and the 80s, we had a huge surplus of assistant nurses. That's absolutely the first example that I know of.
Okay. At the moment in Göteborg or in Sweden in general, are there other experiments planned?
I think both in Gothenburg and in other municipalities in Sweden there will be more of this. In Gothenburg we have ended the project. We're now in the sort of end phase of evaluating it. The report is in last week, and we're now evaluating what to do with the results. We're also thinking about what we did was we set aside 20 million crowns for where one of the subjects are work time innovations, which could be another 6-hour day in another workplace, specifically looking at workplaces where we know that we have problems with the working conditions, poor working environments, bad health, high sick leave rates, because we see this sort of spiraling out effect this can have. So that's what we're doing now, the coming 1 or 2 years.
If my information is correct, a fund is made or will be made to stimulate other experiments, for instance, amongst social workers.
As I said, we've set aside 20 million crowns for sort of a fund or where you can apply from different workplaces. The city has 50,000 employees, so we have plenty of workplaces in need of better working conditions. The first example, which I know is supposed to be underway, but we're not there yet, is social workers in Angered.
In what?
In Angered,
okay.
City part of Gothenburg. We have a sort of a district.
Okay.
But we hopefully will see several good projects starting during 2017 and in the following year, 2018.
How do you see the future of 6 hours working day, 30 hours working week in specific, and working time reduction in general? And is it applicable in Belgium?
It's always difficult when it comes to getting the future right. And it's also difficult to apply your basic understanding of other countries, both the labour market and political system. But from my perspective, we've seen work time reduction since the beginning of time. It's a natural part of developing a society. So for me, from a philosophical standpoint, it's a natural step in the sort of evolution of society, and it's been at least since the 18th century. So we'll definitely see more work time reductions. Will they come from specific politicians' choice to do them, or will it come from trade unions or from other movements' constant pressure? It's harder to say, and it's probably be different in different countries. But we've had the thought of a 40-hour work week now for 40 years, perhaps. Yet, when you look at the labour market, which I've had the benefit of doing, we see that there are many groups that actually do not work 40-hour a week. Mm-hmm. So we've already taken steps, slowly, too slow in my point of view. So we'll see more of it, and I think it'd be one of the answers in how to create a sustainable and equal labour market in the long run.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, and it was nice meeting you. And it's let's say that the experiment in Göteborg is very inspiring for a lot of people around Europe. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.